sworn in to preside over the trial, and the senators then sworn in to act as the jury. Then, according to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell,
we will formally notify the White House of our pending trial and summon the president to answer the articles and send his counsel. So the trial will commence in earnest on Tuesday.
Fox's Mike Emanuel is on Capitol Hill.
House Intelligence Chairman, Democrat Adam Schiff of California, is the lead prosecutor once it goes to trial.
President Trump put his own personal interests above the national interests, above our national security.
House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy blasted Democrats for rushing to impeach and then sitting on the articles of impeachment for 4 weeks.
White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham blasting the process as a sham. President Trump Wednesday signing phase 1 of the new trade agreement with China.
Together we are righting the wrongs of the past and delivering a future of economic justice and security for American workers, farmers, and families.
The president said he expects another trade victory next week, anticipating Senate approval of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade deal. Wall Street saw record closes in the Dow, closing above 29,000 for the first time, and the S&P 500. Dow futures now trading more than 30 points higher. Texas has killed a killer, lethally injecting John Gardner, who was convicted for the murder of his wife 15 years ago. Gardner offered an apology to the woman's family in his final words. America is listening to Fox News.
Mesco Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel Tumon is now serving your favorite daily specials. Come one, come all. Enjoy your Monday with that savory caron pica, your Tuesday with your one and only candied salmon. Stroll by on Wednesday to try that local-style oxtail caro, or Thursday if you're feeling that pan-crisp pork belly served over roasted sweet potato mash. And don't forget that misoyaki black cod with garlic mashed potatoes on Fridays. Busy at work and still want your fix? Call us at 969-2652 for your takeout order.
Yikes, are those Christmas bills coming in already? Those high-interest credit cards at 16, 18, even 24%? Well, we have a New Year's solution for you. A Bank Pacific personal loan with rates as low as 4.65% to pay off those expensive credit cards. It's easy, it's fast, and it's as low as 4.65% APR.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal credit opportunity lender as low as 4.65%. Conditions apply.
Additional accusations have been made against an actress and her husband in the college admissions cheating scandal.
Prosecutors in a new report say Lori Loughlin and her husband Massimo Giannulli, as well as several other parents, are withholding evidence in the college admissions bribery scandal. In a new report, federal prosecutors are calling on all the parents to turn over discovery evidence ahead of a hearing Friday, asserting that the government has turned over the necessary evidence, including emails, phone logs, bank records, and more. In the report, prosecutors say the defendants believe it's premature to do so at this time, but the government disagrees with the defendants. Loughlin and her husband are accused of paying Rick Singer $500,000 to get their daughters into USC. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
A soldier has been killed in a routine freefall parachute training exercise in southern Arizona. He was Master Sergeant Nathan Goodman of Hope Mills, North Carolina. An investigation of the cause of that accident is now underway. A 6-day search for a missing woman in Northern California has ended with the discovery of a 68-year-old woman in her snowbound SUV on a remote mountainous road. The woman, who suffers from dementia, reported to be otherwise in good condition despite the ordeal. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has announced the acts that will be inducted into the hall this spring.
This year's inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame include posthumous honors for the Notorious B.I.G. and Whitney Houston, who are joined by Depeche Mode, Nine Inch Nails, T-Rex, and the Doobie Brothers. Houston's 1985 debut album had 3 #1 singles, and she went on to be the first artist to have 7 consecutive singles top the charts before she passed away in 2012. It's the first year Biggie Smalls has been eligible, while T-Rex has been eligible since 1993. The induction ceremony is set for May 2nd at the Public Auditorium in Cleveland, which is the home of the museum. The performance will be on HBO, televised live for the first time.
Fox's Tanya J. Powers. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
GRMC's Neuroscience and Neurology Department treats a wide spectrum of disorders associated with the nervous system, spine, and brain. Some of the more common disorders include seizures, epilepsy, dementia, sleep disorders, migraine, and stroke, which is one of the leading causes of death on Guam. GRMC's neuroscience team is equipped with the latest technology and the finest neurological doctors. To make an appointment, contact GRMC Specialty Clinics at 645-5500.
Cocoa Coffee Company is now available at Circle K. Single origin coffee beans carefully sourced and locally roasted to give you the freshest cup of coffee Guam has to offer. Grab a cup that's brewed every 30 minutes or purchase a bag of the locally roasted whole beans. Flavors now serving: light medium roasted Ethiopia and medium dark roasted Jamaican Blue Mountain. Exclusively available at Circle K. With every Cocoa Coffee Company purchase, a portion of the proceeds will go towards the Cocoa Recovery Program.
Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And today I've got a squib here dealing with Virginia governor to declare state of emergency to prevent lawful carry at a Second Amendment rally. And I have to admit, pretty soon I'm going to have to put Virginia on the calendar, Virginia versus California, because it seems like Virginia is trying to be just as nutty as California, with the Speaker of the Virginia legislature saying from now on, the legislature's pronoun is going to be she. So when you're speaking to this about the sergeant at arms of the Virginia legislature, who has an X and a Y chromosome and dresses in such a manner as you might think that he is what we used to call a man, but now we have to call them, you have to refer to the sergeant at arms as she. I would imagine that they being the sergeant at arms, really appreciates that. And then the governor, of course, is the guy that distinguished himself by being in favor of infanticide, that a failed abortion that results in a live childbirth should be left up to the mother and the doctor to decide what to do with the poor little baby. And then, of course, there's the picture of him in blackface a few years back, which, whoa, what a horrible thing to do, blackface. So here we go. Virginia governor to declare state of emergency to prevent lawful carry at Second Amendment rally. And it starts out with a quote, "Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room." That's from Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, a really good 1964 movie. Let me read the quote again. "Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room." And here's a quote from the Commonwealth of Virginia in 2020. "Citizens, you can't carry legal firearms here. This is a Second Amendment rally." The laugh-out-loud absurdity of Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove is now the cry-out-loud reality of Democrat-held Virginia. Just days before a planned gun rights protest in the state capitol, Democrat Governor Ralph Northam plans to declare an emergency today, banning all weapons, including firearms, from the Capitol Square. According to NBC4 in Washington, officials speaking on condition of anonymity said the governor is concerned about credible threats of potential violence and extremism. Of course, for the folks in Virginia, extremism would be advocating your rights under the Bill of Rights. That would be extremism down there. However, the ominous-sounding report has the unnamed official admitting that, quote, "the state does not have intelligence that the groups are planning a specific act of violence." Still, Northam has grown increasingly concerned about numerous ominous-sounding postings on social media from forces outside Virginia. You know, maybe what he needs to do, maybe he needs to get himself a gun if he's that skittish. If he's that much of a fraidy cat, he should probably have his own piece, just for peace of mind. Cam Edwards, at our sister site, Bearing Arms, writes that buried at the bottom of a laundry list of rules for the House is new Rule 85. And it reads in part, the House Committee on Rules will establish by majority vote a formal policy on the ability of members, staff, guests, and visitors to bring firearms into those areas under the legal authority of the House of Delegates, including but not limited to the Capitol, the House Chamber. Oh, and this next one is really great. Here are areas under the legal authorities of the House of Delegates: the Capitol, the House Chamber, and the Pocahontas Building. Wow, the Pocahontas Building. Elizabeth Warren's from Massachusetts, you guys. You don't need to name, in Virginia, you don't need to name a building on the Capitol campus after a senator from Massachusetts, unless you really, really like her. Anyhow, the House of Delegates can make rules for the Pocahontas Building. And I suppose that would be no campfires after dark, and no tomahawks with a handle longer than 8 inches, and on and on and on. Pocahontas strikes again. The committee may amend the policy, which may or may not include a blanket prohibition from time to time as appropriate. Copies of the approved policy and any changes or amendments thereof will be provided to every member, full and part-time employee, page, and intern of the Virginia House of Delegates, and be posted for members of the public. But Edwards, who will speak at Monday's rally, also notes that the House of Delegates doesn't control the entire state capitol complex, only the House itself, along with House office spaces, and that the Senate has issued no such rule. And I don't think Pocahontas has either. That might explain Northam's plan to declare a state of emergency in order to assume wider powers and effectively shut down any carrying of firearms to a peaceful firearms protest. The irony. It drips. The Virginia Citizens Defense League is sponsoring the event, and they seem committed to following the letter of the law. Their instructions to protesters include the following. Carry. As of this moment, carry is prohibited inside the General Assembly building and the Capitol. For this reason, we suggest that if you intend to go inside to the lobby, you should leave your firearm at home in your hotel room or out of sight in your locked vehicle. Do not leave an unsecured gun in an unlocked car. There have been multiple firearms stolen out of vehicles lately. Do not handle a loaded firearm. VCDL's firearm safety policy at all VCDL-sponsored meetings or events or gatherings has always been that loaded firearms shall not be handled. They will remain holstered or otherwise secured at all times. Don't ask someone to hold your gun while you go in the building. We suggest that if you are lobbying and come unarmed, that you travel in groups with a, quote, DD, which is a designated defender. This person volunteers to stay outside while the others go in and make our voices heard. As an alternative, you can use a fanny pack type holster, which can be taken off and handed to your companion for safekeeping while you go into the building. Again, do not take the firearm out of its holster. This does not sound to me like the work of anyone trying to incite a violent mob anywhere but Virginia. In fact, the instructions also ask members to be patient with the Capitol Police on the screenings because it was not their idea, but Democrat leadership's idea. Clearly, the VCDL is doing everything in its power to avoid making a scene, which is perfectly in line with their stated mission to advance, quote, the fundamental human right of all Virginians to keep and bear arms as guaranteed by the Second Amendment. Might a few spoilers show up and try to ruin the event and besmirch, or worse, law-abiding gun owners? Anything is possible. And if Northam had a lick of gun sense, you could just stop right, you could leave the word gun out of there. If Northam had a lick of sense, he wouldn't even consider making Capitol Square into a soft target. But the Virginia government is in the grip of the mostly uniformly anti-gun madness since the Brits tried raiding a colonial army in Concord, Massachusetts. Patriots won the day violently in 1775. May they win peacefully in Virginia in 2020. Well, as I said, Virginia has entered a contest with California to see which state can be the nuttiest. Putting it out of the corner of my eye here, we've got Brad Hewitt, who is now living in the great and sovereign state of Texas. And he said, Bob, is GPD going to be held responsible for ransacking the wrong house they had a warrant for? In civilized jurisdictions, usually the police is fully accountable for damages. And then he goes on to say, too many lefty folks have relocated from D.C. and Maryland to Virginia and caused that state to lose their gosh darn mind. Going back to Brad's first question, there is a story floating around that the police had a search warrant and they went to the wrong house, not the house described on the warrant, although the details aren't clear. And when they searched the house, they made a mess of the house. And Brad wants to know, are they going to be held is GPD going to be held liable for that? The answer to that is no. That according to a case called Marangas versus Government of Guam, the government of Guam is not liable in civil rights damages in civil rights cases. It has, and the reason is that the government of Guam is not a, quote, person. As far as just a regular tort suit against the government of Guam has sovereign immunity. And unless you file a claim with the government, with the Attorney General, you can't even file suit. And if you do, your damages are limited to $300,000. But my understanding of the law is this, that a police officer armed with a search warrant pretty much can tear apart the house or the car that he's searching. So if you were searching the right house, okay. So then the next question is, was he searching the wrong house on purpose, or was it negligence? And if it were negligence, then is the government, for sure, the government is not liable for the negligence, in at least under the Claims Act, is not liable for the negligent acts of its employees. Perhaps the individual police officer could be held liable, but even that's a tough one. So my studied answer, Brad, is this: probably not. And I don't know about your reference to in civilized jurisdictions, police are fully accountable for damages. I am not aware that that is the case in other jurisdictions. But thanks a lot for chiming in, Brad. It's always good to hear from you, living down there in the state that are in Texas. People don't remember that Texas annexed the United States in 1845. And since that time, at that time, Texas added several counties to its count, like New Mexico and Arizona and Oklahoma, etc. So, having disposed of the Second Amendment, let's see what we've got as far as Jimmy economy is Jimmy Codney, that's the day that I usually beat up on the Daily News and really get on them for not writing a local editorial and for cobbing one off from the Gannett News Service or USA Today. Well, today, I don't know where they got this one because it's not attributed, but it actually is kind of a Guam editorial. So I'm going to, although it's not exactly, I'm going to treat it that way, and you'll understand as I get into it. A corporate security giant helps spread insecurity. The irony could hardly be more cruel. A huge private security firm committed to selling safety to corporations and communities can't even secure its own guns. More than 600 firearms purchased by the world's largest security firm, G4S, for its armed personnel in the United States, have gone missing since 2009. 600 firearms missing? Wow, this sounds like something out of the Obama administration. Fast and furious. Several will ultimately link to homicides, robberies, or violent domestic assaults, or found in possession of children or convicted felons. I guess one's as bad as the other, a child or a convicted felon. Among the examples uncovered in a year-long investigation by USA Today and the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, one G4S employee in Boynton Beach, Florida, was robbed in 2017 by his drug dealer. Everybody you should have a lawyer, an accountant, a barber, a drug dealer, right? Yeah. Who took the guard's firearm away and demanded money at gunpoint. Another company issued guns stolen from a G4S worker the same year in Boca Raton was later found by police in a car driven by juveniles after a high-speed chase. And in one of the worst cases, in 2009, a G4S firearm stolen in a burglary was used a few days later to murder two young men playing video games. Probably they were playing Grand Theft Auto, don't you think, Rojo Cruz?
I believe so, sir.
Yeah. The Drug Enforcement Administration has twice as many firearms as G4S and loses a handful each year. And reporters found that security competitor Allied Universal had no record of ATF firearm violations in its most recent inspection. Nor are missing guns the only G4S failure. The investigation revealed a G4S record of hiring or retaining guards with criminal convictions, violent pasts, or checkered law enforcement resumes. The company has acquired or retained at least 300 employees fitting this profile. Actions often fueled by a rush to fill vacancies and undercut competitors. One of those employees, retained amid red flags and comments from co-workers, was Omar Mateen. If the name sounds familiar, it's because Mateen was the individual who, in his off hours from working security, killed 49 people at an Orlando nightclub in 2016. Another G4S hire was fired Maryland Corrections Officer Philip Mayo, employed by the company to guard an office building where, while on the job in 29, he assaulted a cleaning woman. "I do what I want," Mayo said, as he ripped her clothes. "I'm security." G4S is a corporate giant with annual revenue of $10 billion and 546,000 workers worldwide, including 48,000 in the United States, where its clients have included the federal government, Bank of America, and Gannett, owner of USA Today. Whoa! But it isn't too big to be held accountable. The ATF needs to do more than crank out citations for chronic firearms failures. The federal government should look hard at whether to pull the company's firearms license, which allows bulk purchases from gun makers and shipments across state lines. It would also make sense for Congress to allow access to certain ATF gun tracing data so the public has a better idea of which companies keep misplacing their firearms. To get the same data, journalists had to pour through thousands of pages of documents from hundreds of police departments. So there you are. So how does this relate to Guam, Real Joe Cruz?
I have no idea, sir.
You have no idea?
Zero.
It's because G4S does business on Guam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. G4S bought what used to be Pacific Security Alarm.
Okay.
Yeah, and they've been in business for quite some time.
So it's a big company.
It's a huge company.
Oh, okay, all right.
Huge company. You go to, they're all over the world. Europe, North America, Guam, they're huge. They're actually a British company, but they do a lot of business in North America. I don't think they have any armed security guards on Guam. I don't know that for a fact. So anyhow, it's the same old daily news stuff, but at least it has some local nexus because that company does business on Guam. Okay, then we've got the Post. Jailed mayor appointing council members, an embarrassment and a lesson. We hope the spectacle of a jailed mayor being able to appoint council members from behind bars offers senators enough proof to rewrite the law and fix a broken system. The public has expressed outrage over this, and lawmakers should act on reactions from the public. Well, Tina Rose Munya Barnes is acting, I can tell you that. I don't know if you've been reading the papers, but Tina Rose Munya Barnes is really, you know what she's doing? She's going off island at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Don't criticize her. She'll be off island. Jonia Mayor Jesse Mendiola Blas has been in jail for more than 100 days after he was arrested in September. He awaits trial in a federal case that accuses him of receiving bribes in exchange for an alleged drug use of mailboxes under his office's control. Well, Blas is considered, give me a break. Well, Blas is considered innocent until proven guilty. He's been proven guilty. Hello out there. Blas has been proven guilty. He's been proven guilty of not doing his job since September. And if you want proofs, just go and call up the Department of Corrections and ask if he's still in jail. That's what he's guilty of, not doing his job. But of course, the Post says, well, Blas is innocent until proven guilty under the government of Guam's job protection plan for people under arrest. You know, like the two ladies at Public Health dragged it out for 2 years from the time their misconduct was discovered until they were finally sentenced. And we had the lady, what was her name? Ovita Nauta, who stole from the police department, tried to repay the money with a check that bounced, was indicted, got transferred to Department of Corrections, kept on the job at Department of Corrections. When she finally pled out, they kept her on at the Department of Corrections. And then the two sex offenders at the National Guard who Major Josephine Blas, the spokesman for the Guard, said, "Oh, we're big on innocent until proven guilty." It's in our Constitution. So, you know, if you're on kind of thin ice, if you work for the government of Guam and you're kind of thin ice and you figure, man, the boss would fire me tomorrow if he could get the papers together. Wow, already, first break. We'll be back in just a few minutes here.
Want to grow your business? Start a new venture? Or stay ahead of the competition? You can. With Docomo Pacific Smart Business Solutions tailored to your specific needs and ambitions, you can do it all. Partner with a network with best-in-class network coverage, state-of-the-art communication platforms, and a team dedicated to providing you with premium support. Call 688-2677 to start your journey to success today. Docomo Pacific Business, delivering your future today.
Chili's 2 for $25 is back. Start with an appetizer to share. Then choose 2 entrees like our mouth-watering old-timer with cheeseburger or the Cajun chicken pasta, grilled chicken with penne and Alfredo sauce, and chili spices. Feeling extra? Upgrade to a personal fajita or our famous half-rack ribs. Bring a friend or a date to Chili's and get 2 entrees for $25. Located on the 2nd floor of Tumon Sands Plaza. Chili's. More life happens here.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, so here we are. The information stems from a criminal case. Let me see if I got the right place here. Yeah. The way the situation unfolded, it seems like no one had the power or will to at least suspend him from appointing his village's municipal council planning members to take over his responsibilities until he's cleared of his legal duties. The information that stems from the criminal case against the mayor alleges he used his authority to threaten a potential witness. This should have been a red flag that he shouldn't be in a position to appoint people to run the village while the charges against him remain. Now, there's a misunderstanding here. Mayor's councils don't run anything. The only thing they do is advise the mayor, and that's about it. And in the case of a vacancy, a fair distance from the next election, appoint the successor to the mayor. Which is kind of telling here, isn't it? And while he's behind bars, the court declined to grant him pretrial for release for a reason. The public isn't safer by freeing him, and yet he's allowed to appoint council members to run his village. No, that's a pretty good size minus. The mayor's council does not run the village. Who runs the village in the absence of the mayor? Well, if we're talking about running the village, and I'm not quite sure what that means, the answer is nobody. So it's kind of like, what did the village mayor do, Real Joe Cruz?
When, sir?
Right now?
For?
Shakespeare? I mean, Sherlock Holmes?
I think I get your point.
Yeah, it's not what he did. It's what he didn't do.
Yeah.
He didn't show up for work. Yeah. The honorable thing for Blas to do is resign, as urged by other mayors and by senators. Well, you look at the charges against him, and, you know, this innocent until proven guilty. You know, that is the thing that pops out of people's mouths as soon as someone is in the arms of the criminal justice system. But let's look what has happened here with Jesse Mendiola Blas. FBI agents have come forward and said some really damning things about Jesse Mendiola Blas under oath. Now, these are not just scurrilous rumors that you heard around the water cooler. These are law enforcement folks under oath in open court saying these things, and they're pretty damning. And then you have a judge, a federal judge, who says, I'm not going to release him because he would be a danger to the community. And he's in the pokey now, pending trial, which will start on the 4th of February. When that trial starts, then there is a presumption of innocence. And that is that the state must prove its its case beyond a reasonable doubt, or the defendant gets a not guilty. Okay, but before the trial starts, no, the innocent until proven guilty is not a good tool by which to watch these things, because as I keep pointing out, what is he guilty of? He's guilty of not doing his job. He's guilty of not acting as the mayor of Jonia. Now, the smart money over here, the guy who, when he was a little baby, his first words weren't mama. His first words were, yeah, but. Saying, yeah, well, he can't do his job because he's in jail. And that, of course, is exactly the point. The fact that you're in jail doesn't give you a pass from not doing your job, except under our Gov Guam Job Protection Plan. And I was saying before the break, if you're working for the government of Guam and you think you're on thin ice with your boss, if you're accused of a crime and prosecution starts, if you can drag it out long enough, no one will do anything to you. No one will fire you during the pendency of that case. You know why? You're innocent until proven guilty. That's the mythology that we're dealing with here, and that even the Post is bought into it today, along with the idea that the village council runs the village. The honorable thing for Blas to do is resign. I wonder how much honor Jesse Mendiola Blas, how much he is honor-driven in his activities. Because you remember, he asked the mayor's council to give him a couple draft resignations. You remember, I furnished a draft resignation right here on Tall Tales. Remember that, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
It was long. Do you remember what it said?
I do not. It was long.
Yeah, it said, I quit. Yeah, that's all it takes. So, but in an act of defiance, he not only has declined to heed the advice, he then proceeds to appoint municipal council members to run the village. No, they're not running the village, but that's what the editorial says. The legislature has the power to let this be a lesson, but it requires them to take action now. Well, I mentioned, and when we get to the card, you'll see Tina Rose Munya Barnes, man, she's really on top of this one. And she really drove a nail in the coffin of this idea of the part-time legislature by the way she's handling this emergency. I'll tell you that, but we'll get to that in a card. They can pass the proposed law putting a recall election in place so that the power is given back to the electorates of a village to decide whether to keep their mayor or let him go. If there's no mechanism to suspend an elected mayor who is arrested and faces charges, then now is the time to write this law. And you don't even need to go that far. All you need to do is say if the office is vacant. And I've talked before, you know, I could give you some solutions here right now as to how that matter could be taken care of. First of all, there's a section in 4GCA. It's one of the very beginning sections of 4GCA, which deals with government personnel. And it's what we'd call a gap filler. And it says if there is a vacant position in the government of Guam and there's no other mechanism to fill the vacancy, the governor appoints. That's what it says. Now, again, Mr. Yabut over here is saying, oh, but nobody said it's vacant. Well, it would take some work. It would take a political advisor and a Philadelphia lawyer to figure out how to go about this. But I suspect that a lawyer armed with Westlaw could find case law from some jurisdiction that said that when a public official is in jail for an interminable period, his office is vacant. So the governor would need to do that. He would need to do a finding saying that as a practical matter, or as a matter de facto, throw a little Latin in there, the office is de facto vacant. And therefore, pursuant to my authority under 4GCA, blah, 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 I am appointing the real Joe Cruz to be the mayor of Jonia. You'd do that, wouldn't you, real Joe Cruz? Boy, listen to those folks up in Jonia, how they
I
like
don't know what I would do with all that free time, sir. I could probably get into some trouble.
That's very true, Real Joe Cruz. Maybe not such a good idea after all. The Election Commission has the ability to call an election when the office is vacant. Same reasoning would apply to them. They could have said, we find that the office of mayor is de facto vacant, and therefore, pursuant to 3 GCA, blah, 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 we are calling a special election to fill this vacancy. Could have been done, right? Now, as far as the governor is concerned, I'd said he'd need a political advisor, because some folks would say, hey, hooray for the governor. She's finally exercising some leadership. And some of the folks in Jonia would say, hooray for the governor. You know, she's finally taking a common sense approach to this, because we need a mayor. Thank you, governor. But then the other side would say, the governor dictator, Lulian Guerrero, you know, has taken over the authority of all the government and makes appointments for positions where she can't point to the law that says she can do it. Bad politics. But, you know, what's even worse? Just to sit around and do nothing? You know, for my own personal preference, Ray has mentioned this on the radio from time to time. You know, when you're dealing with emergent situations, it's almost always better to pray for forgiveness than to beg for permission. But everybody who's involved here is kind of standing back because they don't want to ruffle the feathers on the sacred cow. How's that for mixing a metaphor, like Real Joe Cruz?
I like it, sir.
Yeah. The mayors are so politically powerful. Nobody wants to piss off the mayors. So even though the mayor is in jail pending on some very serious charges, everybody wants to stand back from it. Nobody wants to take a position on it. And who suffers? The folks in Jonia. Unless we apply the Darrell Taggarty approach to this. Darrell Taggarty says we should look on this favorably, because it may very well show us whether we need a mayor or not. You know, if we could go out and see what's going on in Jonia, and if things are going okay in Jonia, in the absence of a mayor, maybe we don't need a mayor. And maybe we could abolish the position of mayor and save ourselves a lot of money. Take the people that work for the mayor, assign them to the appropriate department, Parks and Rec or Public Works or whatever. And maybe this could be a real, as Ray Tenorio would say, teachable moment. Okay. So, good editorial by the Post, but a bad mangling of the facts concerning the Mayor's Advisory Council and a misapplication of the phrase innocent until proven guilty. So I'm going to give him a star. It's not a very big one, and it has a minus behind it, so it's a star minus. Kind of like an A minus, I guess, but better than a poke in the eye. Better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick, right, Real Joe Cruz?
I agree, sir.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the card. And this is what I've got on the card today. I've got funerals versus... Oh, yeah, thank you, Real Joe Cruz. I've got funerals versus Jonia. I've got Pito Terlahi versus Kiko Heathon. I've got Talina versus Jim Moylan, which is also Jim Moylan versus professional politicians, which is going to stay on the card for quite a while, I think. I've got Judy Wanpat versus Smoke. Yeah, I think Judy has invoked the provisions of the Natasha Protection Act, the Indoor Clean Air Act. Judy does not have much tolerance for smoke. And then we've got Priscilla Tuncap versus John Joseph over there at the Department of Parks and Recreation, which has been brought to our attention by a guy named John Joseph who doesn't understand the rules. He wrote a letter of complaint to the governor, and you know what, Real Joe Cruz?
What, sir?
He signed the letter.
Wow.
And he expects the governor to pay some attention to it.
Big mistake.
When he signed it. You don't sign letters of complaint. And then I've got Robert Underwood versus Us, which we started talking about yesterday, and which is going to stay there for quite a while. This whole FESPAC issue, I think, needs a fair amount of examination. And then I've got the Pope versus Trump, which I haven't gotten to yet, and Antonio Gramsci versus Yall, which we talked about a couple times, but is going to stay on the card for a while. Okay, so let's start out with the speaker says no emergencies as you were funeral versus Jonia, and it's from an article in the Post. Speaker says no emergency session on Jonia mayor recall bill. Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes has said no to Vice Speaker Talina Cruz Nelson's request for an emergency session on Bill 259, which would initiate the recall election of the mayor of Jonia, which is what we've been talking about, what we've been concerned about, what I've been saying about, nobody wants to piss off the mayor, certainly not a professional politician like Tina Rose Muñoz Barnes, who knows how it feels to lose, having lost twice. Barnes said the absence of village mayor Jesse Bloss, who has been incarcerated since September as he waits trial, hasn't negatively impacted the village of Jonia. Daryl, are you listening? There's that finding. The Speaker of the legislature said not having a mayor for 4 months has not adversely affected the village. So I would expect Tina to introduce a bill to abolish the position of village mayors. That's what she said. And then she reached out. She didn't chat with, or she reached out. That gives you such a warm feeling that the speaker reached out to a handful of residents. For my conversations with them, they highlighted to me that given that there will be an election later this year, their needs are being addressed by more than a capable staff and Mayor's Council of Guam Executive Director. Well, if the Mayor's Council Executive Director can come over and run the village of Jonia, then maybe we don't need an executive director at the Mayor's Council. We should look at this as a very interesting phenomenon that allows us to see what's really going on. The fact that there is no immediate threat to life, safety, and health, I am unable to waive the open government law. I didn't think that Tina even knew what the open government law was, because they're always violating the open government law with their rules committee meetings and going into session without giving the proper notice. The open government law, and for a special session under the open government law, you don't need to find an emergency. You just need to do it. And then she goes on to say, having made the response, the speaker said she will be leaving island on Thursday for a funeral. So, when things are the way they are in Jonia, she's going to leave island for a funeral. You know why she's doing that, Real Joe Cruz?
I don't.
Because she can. She is, after all, a senator. Yeah, now if you wanted to go to off island for a funeral tomorrow, you just pack up and go, right?
If it was important enough.
You'd just pack, you wouldn't need to tell anybody.
Oh, yeah, of course I'd tell people.
Yeah, and you'd still get paid while you were gone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so 10 minutes to 10 minutes to 5. We got a short break coming up here before the big halftime show.
Lolita Kamet from RE/MAX Diamond Realty, a friendly, hardworking, and passionate RE/MAX professional who is committed to helping you make a difference in your life and helping you achieve the American dream of home ownership. She also specializes in commercial leasing, land sales, local residential sales leasing, military, and corporate relocation. So for all your real estate needs, call Lolita Kamet from RE/MAX Diamond Realty at 688-6743. That's 688-6743.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
We buy a homeowner's policy and never give it another thought until something happens. Life brings changes, and our coverage needs can change. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, so here we are again. And when we left off, Senator Tina Rose Munya Barnes was boarding the plane for an off-island trip to go to a funeral. And of course, she will be paid for the time. She draws her check every 2 weeks, no matter what. She won't be missing a session because she's not going to call a session, right? So it's kind of like Talina Nelson says, Speaker, could you please call a session? We really need one. We've got to deal with this Jonia situation. And the Speaker says, get out of my sight. I'm going to a funeral. It's called priorities. Yeah. And now, where are those folks that say that we don't need a part-time? We have a part-time legislature. It's just costing us too much. When, as a matter of privilege, a senator can just take off and go to a funeral, out of hand deny another senator's call for a special, and it isn't even a special session, it's just a session. Out of hand deny that and just take off and go. And then it gets worse. However, having made the response, the Speaker said she will be leaving Island on Thursday for a funeral, which will make Nelson acting Speaker, and then she can make that call for a special session. So, first of all, Barnes says, I reached out to a handful of people in the village. Everything is fine. We don't need to do it. They don't want it, etc. Therefore, there's no immediate threat to life, safety, and health. I am unable to waive the Oven government law. But then she says, I'm going to a funeral, so Nelson, you'll be in charge tomorrow. And if you want to do it, that's okay. Is that what we call really sticking to a principle? Now, if there were a principle involved, if Juan Pat's denial were more than just a pretext, she'd say, I'm not going to any. If you think that you're going to call this session tomorrow because I'm gone, I ain't going. Because we shouldn't call this. I've decided we shouldn't call it, and I'm not going to let you take advantage of my absence. I'm just not going to go. But once again, it's priorities. What's more important, doing the right thing or going off island to a funeral? Can you answer that one, Real Joe Cruz?
It's a tough one, sir.
It's a tough one, yeah. Nelson requested the session for Thursday, January 16, so that senators can discuss and vote on the bill. In her letter to Speaker, Nelson reiterated the special circumstances that have created an administrative and leadership void in Jonia, leading some village residents to seek guidance from lawmakers on how to move forward with a recall election. Nelson, am I missing a page here? Nelson, through testimony provided during 2 town hall meetings she convened in the village, said they would support the recall of the Jonia mayor. Dozens of residents expressed fears and concerns that the absence of the mayor may precipitate threats to public safety and community welfare, according to the press release. Nelson implored the speaker to call an emergency session and restore public trust for the people of Jonia. So she didn't just ask, she implored the speaker. Now let me see if I could do that. I'm going to let you be the speaker, and I'll be Senator Nelson, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah. Madam Speaker, I implore you to call that special session. The people of Jonia really need it.
Silence!
Well, let's try it this time, but then say, no, because I'm going to a funeral, all right? We'll try that one. Madam Speaker, I implore you to call a special session just to benefit the people of Jonia who are really crying out for some leadership.
I'm sorry, I can't. I'm going to a funeral.
Well, you're pretty calm about it, but all right. Yeah, you can't do it. You're going to a funeral. All right. That's kind of the way it played out. Yeah, come back. Don't bother me when I'm so busy. I'm going to a funeral. Nelson implored the speaker to call an emergency session and restore public trust for the people of Jonia. Every village on our island has the right to have their elected municipal leaders accessible to them with the ability to address constituent concerns and represent them in community matters. This is what we're working towards, Nelson said. Well, the people of Jonia, as you were the mayor of Jonia, Jesse Mendiola Blas, is acceptable to the people. All they need to do is send him a letter asking that they be placed on his visitors list. And then they can go into the jail and talk to him, tell him everything that he needs to know. But here we are. The privilege, the arrogance of a speaker to say, no, I'm going off island to a funeral. So I don't think it's good policy, but you're going to be acting. So if you feel that strongly about it, take off, go ahead and do it. Do we really need a part-time legislature, or aren't we really well served with this full-time legislature that we have? Now, I'm wondering, if, as a general principle, if you don't come to work, you don't get paid. So I sent a FOIA to the speaker this morning asking for all public records showing that she has instructed the appropriate employees at the legislature to dock her 1 day's pay for going off island. You think I'll get anything back? I suspect that the speaker will see this as some sort of a funny joke. Hey, what do you mean? I'm a senator. That's what we do. We go to funerals. We go off island. You used to be a senator. You should understand that. Yeah. Okay, so much for funerals versus the people of Jonia. And sorry, folks out there in Jonia, obviously funerals are more important than you are. Okay, let's break for that big halftime show that we have every day at 1700. I'll be back in 5 or 6 minutes.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Handing off to the Senate, I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The House has passed, and Speaker Nancy Pelosi has signed a resolution to send to the Senate
articles of impeachment against the President of the United States for abuse of power and obstruction of the House.
The next steps of the process begin midday Thursday, as Fox's Chad Pergram explains from Capitol Hill.
The impeachment matters will go back over to the Senate. This is the first step in the impeachment trial. Mike Stenger, who is the Senate Sergeant at Arms, will read this from Senate Impeachment Rule 1. All persons are commanded to keep silence on pain of imprisonment. Later in the afternoon, the Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts, will come across the street from the Supreme Court. He will be sworn in, and then later he will swear in all of the senators as jurors.
The Senate will then formally notify the president of the articles and ask him to send his legal team for the actual start of the trial on Tuesday. Among the House members who will act as prosecutors, Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler.
There is an overwhelming case, beyond any reasonable doubt, that the president betrayed the country.
Among the Senate jurors, Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
Once the president is able to defend himself, I am confident that the result of that is the president will be acquitted. And the reason is these articles of impeachment on their face are ridiculous. They don't satisfy the constitutional standard of high crimes and misdemeanors.
Senator Cruz on Fox's Hannity, what the White House calls an historic trade deal with China signed Wednesday, which Vice President Mike Pence says
represents a beginning to resolving the issues that we've had with China now for 2 decades. But it would only have been possible because of the strong stand that President Trump has taken, and frankly, that he continues to take.
The agreement eases some tariffs on Chinese imports in exchange for Beijing buying more U.S. goods. America is listening to Fox News.
Yikes, are those Christmas bills coming in already? Those high-interest credit cards at 16, 18, even 24%? Well, we have a New Year's solution for you. A Bank Pacific personal loan with rates as low as 4.65% to pay off those expensive credit cards. It's easy, it's fast, and it's as low as 4.65% APR.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal credit opportunity lender as low as 4.65%. Conditions apply.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon is stirring up some of your favorite drinks all night long. Come down on Wednesday and Friday nights from 5:30 to 10 p.m. Indulge in some of your favorite local cuisine and pair it with your favorite drink. From our ice-cold beers, our finest selection of wines and liquors, to our top-notch cocktail specials, your friends at Mezcla Bistro Tumon are ready to serve you. Why limit happy to only an hour? The Mezcla family reminds everyone to drink responsibly. See you on Wednesday and Friday night.
High-level diplomatic talks beginning in England as Canada considers a response to Iran's shoot-down of a passenger jet.
Diplomats from Canada, Ukraine, Britain, Afghanistan and Sweden meeting today here in London. All 5 countries had citizens on board a Ukrainian airliner brought down by an Iranian missile last week. 57 were Canadian. Ukraine's foreign minister says the countries will discuss possible legal action, compensation and how the crash is investigated. Iran has pledged to be accountable to countries who lost citizens. In London, Simon Owen, Fox News.
Tuesday's fatal shooting of a student in a suburban Houston high school appears to be accidental. 16-year-old student has now been charged as a minor with manslaughter after pulling the trigger on a gun he thought was not loaded but killed 16-year-old student Cesar Cortez. The first execution of the year has been carried out in Texas, where John Gardner was lethally injected right after he apologized to the family of his 4th wife, whom he shot to death 15 years ago. Georgia is preparing for an execution that may or may not happen on Thursday. Jimmy Meters is scheduled to be executed for the murder of a convenience store clerk, but the state's Board of Pardons and Paroles still deciding on his request for clemency. Looks like it's safe to go back to the salad bar.
The E. coli outbreak, believed to have been triggered by romaine lettuce, appears to be over. That word from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which had been warning against eating romaine grown in the Salinas Valley of California. The feds say 167 people across 27 states were reported to have gotten sick from September to December of 2019. No deaths reported, but 85 people got so sick they had to be hospitalized. Now the CDC says the contaminated lettuce is no longer available for sale.
Fox's Jill Nato. And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
If you've ever struggled for breath, you know what a scary experience it is. Whether you have asthma, emphysema, COPD, lung cancer, or another respiratory illness, the right medical treatment makes all the difference. GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic has the latest technology and respiratory equipment, staffed by world-class pulmonologists. Make an appointment today with GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic and start breathing easier. GRMC, where patients are partners.
From the start of the NFL football season, Point listeners have gotten together in friendly competition to battle it out in the Points NFL Pick'em contest. Along with weekly winners picking up great prizes, we have also awarded our grand prize winner, Art Hameister. Art correctly guessed 170 picks. Wow. Good enough for him to win a new iPhone from GTA. Congratulations, Art. Thanks to all who participated in the Points NFL Pick'em contest. Brought to you by Current Guam with special thanks to GTA.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Back from that big halftime show that you all look forward to so much. And during the break, I took a look at a link that Brad furnished me about searching the wrong house. And it's from the Lexington Herald-Leader. I guess it's Lexington, Kentucky. And the title is City Pays Settlement After Officers Raided the Wrong House. And I'll read parts of it. First, they breached the front door with a battering ram. Then Bowling Green police officers ordered a Marine veteran of the Iraq War and his wife, a special education teacher, to the floor of their home and slapped handcuffs on them. The search warrant police were executing was intended for someone else. Michael Hutchison and his wife Stacy recently reached a $5,000 settlement with the city of Bowling Green for the July 11, 2016 raid. The lead detective in a bank fraud investigation, Jason Franks, was given a written reprimand in August for failing to exercise due diligence in verifying the home's occupants. The settlement was reached 9 months after the city's claims representative, Mayfield-based Collins and Company, Inc., sent the Hutchisons a letter stating that the company found no negligence on the city's part and denied the couple's claim for damages. A city representative called Michael Hutchison before he received the letter, telling him he would receive a denial letter and offering on behalf of the city to pay to repair the couple's front door on the condition that Hutchisons keep their mouths shut, Michael Hutchison said. So on. So settlement, $5,000. It's a long article explaining how the wrong house was searched. And it's interesting. And I haven't had a chance to study it, but I could see how it happened. And I'd probably like to discuss this tomorrow as part of the Second Amendment, Brad. The Second Amendment workup, if you would be kind enough to email it to me. I don't know if I can copy this off Facebook when I get home or not. So just to make sure, if you could send me an email, I'd appreciate it, and we'll go into it a little bit more depth. Thanks for sending it along. Okay, so next on the agenda, Peter Terlahi versus Kiko Heaton. And this is an article that appeared in KUAM yesterday, or maybe last night. Pito Terlahi shows support for jail Jonia Mayer and was also elected.
I just got a call regarding emergency session that the legislature is having right now regarding the recall of the mayor.
Okay.
That's the only information I have at this point, so I'm trying to get more information.
Who did you get it from?
From Ray.
Huh?
From Ray.
Oh, okay.
Probably
All right.
reliable. Yeah.
All right. Peter Terlahi shows support for jailed Jonia Mayer. Peter Terlahi shows support for jailed Jonia Mayer. Was also selected for the village mayor's council. To recall or not to recall? That is the question. Vice Speaker Talina Nelson's Bill 259, which would allow a recall election for jailed Jonia Mayer Jesse Bloss, is up for a public hearing today. We would have to go into session tomorrow to ensure that we safely meet the timeline of processing the bill forward and 10 days for the governor to sign it, if she should sign. Then allow 30 days to conduct a recall so the position would be vacant by March 8, 2020. Nelson explained how tight the timeline is for passing her bill. She called it a very uncomfortable bill for an unusual circumstance. Mayor Bloss has been in the slammer since September, but he just appointed a municipal planning council, which we talked about during Zemi Ikotny, something he failed to do when he wasn't in jail. One of Mayor Bloss's appointees to his village MPC, Senator Jose Pito Terlahi, went to bat for Bloss. Well, that's good. Who was indicted on bribery and extortion charges relative to allowing drug traffickers to use cluster mailboxes to ship the drug ICE into Guam. Senator Terlahi's son, Joey Terlahi, a former prison deputy director, was linked to Bloss by the feds. Joey abruptly resigned from the Department of Corrections the day after Bloss's arraignment hearing, his name mentioned by federal agents in that hearing. Today, Senator Terlahi gave his thoughts on Jonia's situation. Here's a quote. Let the court decide. You know, believe in our democratic society, he said at the hearing. Well, fine. You know, it's good to throw the word democracy around. You know, democracy is kind of like rhetorical penicillin. It cures just about everything. But democracy, and we talked about this before, words have meanings. And the word democracy means rule by the people. Well, the courts are not democratic. The courts are the least democratic part of our government because the people in the courts, the judges, are not elected. So there's no democratic element in the courts. So when Pito says, let the courts decide, you know, believe in our democratic society. So what is the problem with waiting to let the court decide before going into this? And, of course, we've already decided the Tall Tales ruling is already in, and that is that Jesse Bloss is guilty. Guilty of what? Extortion and bribery? No, he's guilty of not fulfilling his duties as the mayor of Jonia. That's what he's guilty of. So I guess I'm going to find out here that, once again, I don't know Jack. Right, Jack?
Well, good afternoon, Bob.
Hi.
Yeah, well, what a kerfuffle that is.
It is.
But I want to, I came across the Post article this morning. Did you happen to read it? It's titled "Pregnant Cocaine Dealer Back in Prison."
Yeah, I read it.
Did you read that part, the quotes by Judge Secola?
Refresh my recollection, Jack.
Yeah, okay, it says here, I'm just skimming down. It says here, and this is a quote from Judge Secola, Listen to me very carefully. She's speaking to Antalan. Now you told me you're with child and not even sure how many months you are, and you told the court you had taken meth. I want you to know that could affect your child. From now on, and knowing your physical condition, if you take any kind of drug, you will be back in jail, and I will call CPS. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Antalan said. And then the judge goes on. Because you could kill your baby. Sorry, it has to say it like that, but that's what's going to happen if you don't stop what you're doing. So my question is, did Judge Sokola just give rights? I'm a staunch pro-life person. So did Judge Sokola just give rights to the baby in the womb?
I think we've already done that, Jack. We have an unborn victims bill that passed a couple legislatures ago that is basically the thrust of it.
Okay, so, wow, I did not know that.
Well, that's why it pays to listen to tall tales.
So basically, we don't have an abortion doctor here, right?
And it's a horrible emergency. We haven't had a reported abortion for over a year now, and Lulianne Guerrero has jumped to that emergency. She's got sent Jane Flores to find an abortionist. We can't let this go on.
Yeah. So, but we don't have a medical examiner either, which I think we need more. But let me get this straight. So we do have protections for a child in the womb.
That's right.
Okay. I had no idea, because I remember a couple of months ago, there was a lady that was pregnant, and I think she got hit on the sidewalk, and nothing came out of that. So wow. That is absolute news to me. I know that it varied from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but I did not know that we had a child in the womb protection.
And the statute even says unborn child.
That
uses that language. Yeah.
Okay, so I know that's great. I mean that's great news to me, but I had no idea that that law existed and it's being enforced. I had no idea. I did not know that.
Well, maybe maybe we're turning the tables here this time around.
I hope so.
Maybe I know something and you're the one that doesn't know, Jack.
No, that's great news. So, because there were some arguments, and I read articles like, pregnant mothers dying in car crash or being beaten, and it didn't count like as the baby died in the womb, but it didn't count as homicide.
It does now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great news. Oh man. Oh my gosh. I was reading that, and I was shocked, because that's the first time I ever heard of it. But hey, that's great news. And another thing that you mentioned about Virginia and their ban on guns during demonstrations?
Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering. Did you also read the new article that Virginia became the 38th state to ratify the ERA?
Well, I'm not surprised. As I said, they're in a race with California to see who could be the nuttiest, and they're a little late on the ERA.
Yeah, that was dead in the water in '82, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that little consequence, no consequence, or?
That would be my interpretation. When Congress says you got 7 years to do it, that means you got 7 years to do it. Of course, when Virginia did this, and the 38th state, as I recall, is the key state that puts them over the line and limit.
Yeah.
The reason for doing that is not to get the amendment on the books, but to give the left more whining rights.
Okay. Well, anyways, I just wanted to throw that in there, because I got that in my email box, and I said, wow, that's like a little too late there, but I just wanted to see what your opinion on it, whether it's just a bunch of hot air or whether or not it has legs. And, it was done back I think there was a shelf life on that. So, Well, anyways, Bob, I'm listening in, and yeah, thanks for letting me know that. I had no idea we had protections for the baby in the womb, and that's just great news. I've been a staunch supporter of that for a long time, but I never heard it being enforced on Guam or being recognized on any level. But wow, that's great news.
Okay, Jack. Thanks for calling.
Have a great day, Bob.
All right. So
yeah, it's true.
Maybe this time I did know Jack.
You did.
Yeah.
Also, the senators of the 35th Guam legislature will discuss the recall vote bill for the Jonya mayor on 10 a.m. Friday. Acting Speaker Nelson calls the legislature into emergency session.
So she must have acted as soon as it was wheels up on Tina's flight off island, huh?
I think she heard you, though.
More than likely. Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah. That's more than likely that's it. Yeah. When Tall Tale speaks, Tall Tale's kind of the E.F. Hutton of talk radio. When Tall Tale speaks, people listen, right? Okay, so we're back here to Pito Terlahi versus Kiko Hitan, and the immortal words of Mayor Pito Terlahi, whose committee in the legislature has jurisdiction over village mayors. Let the court decide. Believe in our democratic society, he said at the hearing. So what is the problem with waiting to let the court decide before going into this? And before I took Jack up, I said, he's been found guilty in the court of Tall Tales. What is he guilty of? He's guilty of not performing his duties as mayor. But Pito obviously is a proponent of the Gov Guam Job Protection Plan, which is let him stay there during the pendency of his court case. The fact that there's no mayor and that the folks in Jonya are crying for a mayor, the fact that Pito lives in Jonya, let's just have faith in our democratic society, he said. Jonya resident Kiko Hitan had been behind a recall petition, but he said residents were scared to sign it. It was revealed in Bloss's court hearings that a federal informant said Bloss had threatened her, saying he had connections in law enforcement. Heaton, who said he may run for mayor, asked senators why they didn't act sooner to deal with the issues surrounding Bloss and the mayor's office. You are lawmakers, he said. Is he breaking the law or not? Make me understand. What's your answer? While Heaton said residents were scared to sign the petition, Senator Terlahi disagreed. I speak for the Jonya people because I am from Jonya, and being there for 70-some years, I know the main village of Jonya are all close together. They're families. Terlahi said, it's not the fact that the residents don't want to sign the petition. The people of Jonya are really a close community, and Jesse Bloss, for example, stays right in the center of Jonya. Whoa. It's not a matter of people being afraid to sign that petition. Well, what is it then? The fact that he lives in the center of Jonya gives him a pass? Bloss's trial is set for February 4. If a recall election of Bloss creates a vacancy by March 8, a special election will be held to replace him. As also today, Nelson has written to Speaker Tina Munya Barnes asking for an emergency session to be called tomorrow to address her recall. So, Terlahi has been against this from the beginning. When the reporter first asked him right after Bloss was tossed in the pokey, Terlahi said, well, I've got to see what the consensus of the members is before I do anything about a recall. Unless everybody agrees to it, I'm not going to do anything. So then Bloss, who should have appointed a mayor's council right after he was elected, which had been now over 3 years ago, did nothing. But now, from the depths of his jail cell, he has appointed 10 people to the mayor's council. So that the league could get out your Law and Order notebooks here, Real Joe Cruz. The question is having Jesse Bloss appoint you to this council, is that defamation? I wouldn't want Jesse Bloss to appoint me to anything, given the information available about him, sworn statements in open court, etc. So what is the connection between Jesse Bloss and the 10 people he appointed to the mayor's council? Not a good place to be, 10 people. And the most telling of all is number 9 on the list, Jose Pito Terlahi, Senator, 35th Guam Legislature. So maybe that's quid pro quo. Terlahi says, why don't we just let this go? We don't need no stinking recall. We'll just let it go in our democratic society. And Bloss says, thanks a lot. I'm going to appoint you to the mayor's council. So I have a January 6th document here where Pito Terlahi accepts the appointment. Now, Pito is a senator in the 35th Guam Legislature. The legislature, of course, is the guess which branch? The legislative branch. And the mayors are in the executive branch. So it looks like Pito is looking for the Will Castro trophy for having a foot in each branch. You'll recall that when Will Castro was sworn in, he took a junket paid for by the executive branch. And now, Pito Terlahi, there's nothing wrong with that, you know. I could serve on the mayor's council. No harm, no foul. Somebody must have given him a good cuff upside the head, because he finally got enough sense to say, no, I'm not going to do that. But all of these things, Terlahi sticks up for Jesse Bloss, who, according to sworn testimony, has done some really bad things, has allegedly has alleged that he has very strong ties in the law enforcement community. His son was implicated in open court. His son resigned as the deputy director of corrections the next day. Terlahi comes out and sticks up for Bloss, and Bloss appoints him to his mayor's council. I don't think we don't need a part-time legislature. You know, we've got people that are so diligent in their work that they will not only serve in the legislature, but they'll take part-time work in the mayor's council also. And they really believe in our democratic society. Do we really need a part-time legislature? I don't know. Okay, and that's the next item on the list. This is Jim Moylan's part-time legislature bill, which I've talked about before. It is a fine bill. And of course, anybody who's a senator now, or anybody who wants to be a senator under the current rules, would say it's a terrible bill. And the real flaw in this bill, as far as they're concerned, is on page, let's see here if I can find it real quick. Yeah, I've got the bill here. On page 7. Page 7 would repeal 2 GCA 1106, which provides for senatorial salaries in the amount of $55,307, and would replace it by a section that says that senators are entitled to a stipend of $100 a day for each day that the legislature is in session. So the legislature can be in session for 60 days. I got my mental calculator turned on today. So 60 days at $6, at $100, excuse me, at $100, that's about $6,000, not $600,000. Okay, we got this. We got the seventh inning stretch coming up here.
Hi, welcome to this ad for new Subway sliders, starting at $1.99 each. How do you want it?
Cheer squad. Woo! Go Subway sliders, starting at $1.99 each. Woo! Give me a ham and jack slider.
Ham and jack slider.
Give me an Italian spice slider.
Italian spice slider.
What's that spell?
It doesn't really spell anything.
New Subway sliders, starting at $1.99 each. Go sliders!
Subway, make it what you want.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Mezcla Restaurant in Hagåtña is closed for improvements and will reopen on the 27th of January. You can still get all your favorites at Mezcla Bistro in Tumon on the first floor of the Grand Plaza Hotel. Favorites like certified Angus beef pot roast tacos, fork tender, Chamorro-style beef pot roast, sautéed with onions and doni, stuffed into soft corn tortillas, and topped with fresh onions and cilantro. Served with a spicy roasted chili salsa for only $16.95. Visit Mezcla in Hagåtña on the 27th of January because they'll be closed for renovations. But check them out in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. Reservations, call them up, 969-2652.
Wrigley Field, Chicago, center field bleachers. And we're in the no smoking section because the next item on the card here is Judy Wonpat invoking the Natasha Act, the Protection Act, versus smoke. And I've got an article here from the PDN entitled, San Nicolas, Democrats try to oust me. Party chairman woman resigns weeks after election. So I'm going to come back to the story, but I actually have a press release from Michael San Nicolas. And it reads pretty interesting. I'll read it. Less than 3 weeks after selecting new party officers, the recently elected chairwoman of the Democratic Party, former Speaker Judy Wonpat, has resigned. Recently, party bosses determined behind closed doors to remove Congressman San Nicolas by endorsing Public Auditor B.J. Cruz to challenge him in the 2020 election. So, do you get the picture? I suppose you younger folks probably don't even know who Pogo is, but Pogo did a famous cartoon about these politicians in a smoke-filled room. And they had like a stove outside the room, so there'd be enough smoke in the room. But the smoke-filled room is an old political term, meaning a room where party bosses get together and decide who the party's candidates are going to be. And, of course, back in the era of Boss Tweed and Tammany Hall and the real era of the party bosses would smoke cigars. So they'd get into the smoke-filled room and they'd decide who the party's candidates were going to be. And I've mentioned this before. I've talked with Ken about this before. That's the reason that the progressives of all people came up with the idea of primary elections around the turn of the last century. The complaint being, well, yeah, we get to go to the polls and vote in the general election, but we don't get to choose the candidates. So it's really meaningless. We get to choose among the candidates that the party boss has selected. Let's have a primary. So that's where the term smoke-filled room comes from. So in the smoke-filled room here, the Democratic Party bosses, according to St. Nicholas, have said, let's dump St. Nicholas. Let's get rid of him. Who could beat St. Nicholas? I know, BJ. BJ could beat St. Nicholas. All right, we'll put BJ's name up there on the skyline. Is anybody to talk to BJ? Nah, it's not necessary. This is not about BJ. This is about St. Nicholas. Now, I don't know, and I'm only speculating here, but I have this mental image. Judy Wonpat sitting there listening to all of this stuff, saying, it's too smoky in here for me. I'm for party unity. I'm not going to be a party to... I'm not going to have any role in this at all. If you guys want to do this, you go ahead and do it. I'm out. Not in, but out. And that's why I titled this item on the card, Judy Wonpat versus Smoke. Because apparently Judy is intolerant of smoke in a smoke-filled room. Yeah, so in the latter half, this is St. Nicholas press release again, in the latter half of 2019 and into the new year, Congressman St. Nicholas, a Democrat, has squared off against the Democrat Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. Bad, bad, bad. Democrat Speaker Tina Rose Munya Barnes, when she was in town, not going to funerals. And certain Democrat senators over issues like war claims payoffs, tax refund deposits, and seeking public consent before raising taxes or taking on debt. In response to the recent actions of Congressman St. Nicholas, Congressman St. Nicholas states, Democratic Party bosses have twice before called for my removal from the party. We never let that distract us from our work and won't let it do so now. We never let that, we welcome any opportunity to challenge party politics when they conflict with what's good for the people. So that's St. Nicholas's press release. And then I have a story here from the Daily News. It just came out today. St. Nicholas, a former senator, is serving his first term as a non-voting delegate in the House. In the latter half of 2019, he squared off against his fellow Democrats, including Governor Lou Leon Guerrero and Speaker Tina Munya Barnes, over war claims payouts, tax refund deposits, and seeking voter consent before raising taxes. So we know that. So this is the way I see it. Smoke-filled room, dump St. Nicholas, put BJ's name out there, and Judy Wonpat said, I'm not going to do this. So long, I'm out of here. Now, the next voice that we hear is Carlo Branch. Now, I don't know Carlo. I know who Carlo is. I don't know if he smokes or not. Don't know if he smokes cigars. But he kind of sounds like it because he says this. Carlo Branch, the governor's policy director, says he's speaking as a Democrat only. Now, this is not Carlo Branch, the policy director for Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. No, it's not him at all. It's Carlo Branch, the Democrat. And I always get a kick out of people who think we're so stupid that we're going to fall for that, as though he would say one thing as a Democrat and something else as an employee of the governor. You know, you are who you are. You only got one mouth. I may screw that up. They only have one mouth. even if their personal pronoun is they. So when you speak, and your words carry such weight as they will bear, and they're attributable to the context in which they arise. So you can't speak just as a Democrat. If you're speaking, what you say goes back to Lulian Guerrero. Now, I don't know, but maybe Carlo was in the smoke-filled room that Judy couldn't tolerate. But anyhow, this is what he says. As a Democrat, I can't help but feel that Mike has a clear hatred for the party from which he has sought and continues to seek nomination. He knows our nominee is elected, not selected. And while the party endorses no candidate before the primary, Democrats are free to find a challenger for any seat. That's how democracy works. Very, very interesting. Dissension amongst the ranks of the Democrats. So Judy Wonpat was having no part of it. She resigned. So I guess the only thing left for me to do is try to find out where they held the meeting, and then tell the public health folks. Public health folks are the ones that enforce the Natasha Protection Act, and tell them to go over there and make sure that there's no more of this smoke-filled room. Now, in the Daily News story, BJ said, no, he hasn't been contacted. No, he's not a candidate. If he is a candidate, he'll let you know. In other words, pay no attention to those boys in the smoke-filled room. And if my analysis of the smoke-filled room is correct, they don't care. They don't care what he says. They just wanted to put his name up there on the skyline to weaken Michael San Nicolas. Now, this next part of the story here, I got to talk. You know how I hate to talk about myself, Real Joe Cruz, right?
But this is about you, sir?
This time I have to. It's about me.
I understand.
Yeah. I put together testimony on Bill 256, and I read parts of it here, parts of the bill. I criticized parts of the bill on Tall Tales. That was that bill by that great statesman Pito Terlahi, Tina Rose Munya Barnes, and Will Castro. It was 17 pages long, and my testimony added or offered one more section to add to the bill to make the bill totally complete. And the section that I offered to add to the bill dealt with the kitchen sink at the Election Commission office, because the bill had everything in it but the kitchen sink. It so violated their in-house standing rules, it was almost comical. And I analyzed it, and I said, Bill 256 is not one bill, it's 8 bills. And I listed the 8 bill. And here's my testimony on the second bill, which is found at sections 16 and 22 of Bill 256. And it's called the Democrat Party Discipline Act. That's what I call it. In the last election, Frank Uggan's write-in total shined a bright light on the Democrats' lack of party discipline, which they are apparently determined never to allow to happen again. Thus, Section 16. Section 22 is Michael San Nicolas' comeuppance for not signing the loyalty pledge. Section 22 is the one that prescribes a procedure to fill a vacancy in the office of Washington Rep. So Section 22 is San Nicolas's comeuppance. And then the testimony goes on to say Section 22's mechanism for filling a vacancy in San Nicolas' office can only be seen as precatory. That's probably not part of your everyday vocabulary, is it, Real Joe Cruz?
No, sir, I try not to pontificate too much.
Good for you. That's kind of my job, right? Yeah, precatory means it's something you wish for. So if I said, real Joe Cruz, you will play She Broke My Heart in 3 places at the beginning of the program, that would be something I'm ordering the real Joe Cruz to do. But if I said, real Joe Cruz, I'd like it if you played She Broke My Heart, that would be precatory. Or even if I said, you ought to play real Joe Cruz, that's precatory, something you wish for. So when the Democrats throw this section in the bill talking about filling a vacancy in the Washington Reps position, it's obviously something they're wishing would happen. They would like to see San Nicolas kicked out so they could put somebody else in. They could go out and find the nearest street person and put him in the office, and that for them would be a better alternative than Michael San Nicolas, because Michael San Nicolas can march, but he marches to his own drum beat. And he hears the Democrats over there banging on this snare drum, and he pays no attention to it. So I have 2 reactions to that. A lot of times I like the stuff he's doing, so I think it's good. But even if he's doing something I'm not that crazy about, I still like it. Because I don't like to see this smoke-filled room, Carlo Branch speaking as a Democrat when he's the governor's spokesperson. So it's good. There's a Michael San Nicolas out there just to jab him and poke him and keep him on track. So good for you, Michael San Nicolas. So that's Juan Pat versus the smoke. All right, next one we've got is on the card, Priscilla Tuncap versus John Joseph. And this guy, John Joseph, as I mentioned, wow, what a guy. You know, he doesn't understand that if you're going to write a letter to the governor, you should never sign it if you want anybody to pay any attention to it. But I have his letter here. I'm not going to tell you where I got it, but I got it. And this is his letter. This is not a news article. This is his letter, dated yesterday. Dear Governor, this morning the news of the decision of the Civil Service Commission to reinstate Ms. Linda Uggan shook our office, the Guam Historic Resources Division. We were so overwhelmed by the shock of the news, we had to break from our work to gather our feelings and try to absorb the consequences of this office and maybe turn the air conditioning down a little lower. You know, snowflakes will melt. The staff was basically speechless. However, we all agreed that we cannot sit idly without our voice being heard. Several of the GHRD staff have written me expressing their feelings on the situation. One of my staff made an eloquent statement this morning in our Purging of Feelings meeting that the return of Miss Uggan to the office is not workable. And there was a consensus of employees that we could no longer work with Miss Uggan. Our working environment has improved since her removal, and we now enjoy coming to work and doing our jobs. Statistics concerning our work production has totally changed since the removal of Ms. Uggan, and we feel that we cannot go back to the toxic and hostile environment that has plagued this office for years. The termination was only based on actions from May of 2019 and did not take in the years of abuse that had been endured by employees in this office and those that have left. The staff comments range from picketing in the street against reinstatement. A walkout was mentioned, but also professionalism and neutrality were conversed. However, the consensus is her return is not workable. GHRD staff all feel that we are here for a greater purpose to save Guam's historic resources. Now, wasn't Linda Uggan the great hero of saving Guam's historic resources?
I don't know, sir.
Well, we're getting to the home stretch, so I'm going to stay with Linda Uggan right down to the end of the program here.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
For you, here's a clue. Advertising, marketing, screening, inspecting, instructing, leasing and signing, collecting and complying, inquiring and assessing, coordinating, repairing, renewing, enforcing, evicting, moving, cleaning, rekeying, communicating. Do it yourself and you'll find it taxing. We work hard to keep the vacancies low, so at the end of the month, you collect the dough. Proven and trusted. Horizon Properties. We do it all. 777-7792.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. Home stretch on Tall Tales. It means I got about 8 minutes here till the end of another educational, exciting, elucidating episode of Tall Tales.
Elucidating.
Elucidating. We
Do tell, sir.
We elucidate.
Meaning?
Make lucid. Shine.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Shine the light.
Yeah, so if something looks a little cloudy or dark, bring it on. I'll elucidate.
New word for me, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, well, Tall Tales is a learning experience. Okay, and then, of course, Jesse Limtiaco here has to always pop in and assign blame. And here's what he says. Jesse Limtiaco, party bosses, sounds American. And, of course, I was explaining that party bosses, you know, it's a bad thing. It's an evil thing. We need primary elections. So party bosses, it sounds American. Let's try this one on, Jesse. Manmagas Partido. Calling tomorrow? No, I know. Yeah, so, but for Jesse, if you have to assign a cause or a blame, it's almost always the same. And this is a fine example. Well, thanks for chiming in. Jesse, I won't go into your dialogue with Elwin Campaco Quitano, who takes a slightly different view from your own. Okay, so I was reading the letter from, what's the guy's name? John Mark Joseph. And the emails I received today from GHRD staff has expressed feelings of returning nightmares and increased anxiety, retaliations, and a hostile environment. Ms. Uggan's departing words to some of us here in the office was perceived as a threat. She basically said, what comes around goes around, and that we would be getting ours. So once again, my mental image, Linda Uggan has packed her stuff and she's moving out of the office out there, and everybody is, I suppose, a little bit embarrassed, probably trying to look down, and these things make people uncomfortable. She gets to the door, Linda Uggan turns around and says, all right, you guys, what goes around comes around. You'll be getting yours. I don't know if that's what happened, but that's my mental image of it. The staff has expressed transferring or quitting if Miss Uggan returns. I, too, have to weigh my options as I came here to help Guam in its time of need, and we are not yet out of the woods by far. but I have to consider my health and well-being first. Boy, this is one person? Yeah, and I can't say this anymore. This a woman? Is this a dramatic effect? You know, I could see it all now. Try this one on, Real Joe Cruz. Linda Uggan, the movie.
That sounds good.
Yeah, right up there with Friday the 13th and Freddy Krueger's sister. And
this summer, Linda Uggan.
The movie.
The movie.
Yeah. That's kind of what it sounds like. I mean, she really rode hard on those. But she rode them hard and put them away wet out there, apparently, yeah. So I see there are only 4 signatures here. I think most of the signatures were left out. One of them was Michelle Yamasta, who was a witness at the Civil Service Commission, or a witness before the hearing officer at the Civil Service Commission. So I suppose she's really, you know, on shaky ground. So let's just think about this for a minute. There's a lot to talk about here. I can't finish it up between now and 1800, but you can bet your bottom dollar I'll be talking about it tomorrow. Some basic precepts. Employees don't get to elect their boss, at least not in our system. Maybe I think probably in the Soviet Union, when at the beginning, when the slogan was all power to the Soviets, maybe you could elect your boss then, but not in our system, not in our government. You don't get to elect your boss. A boss has to operate within certain standards of conduct, but even if, I'm going to be careful here, even if they do, this is one boss, but even if they do, some of the things that the boss does will displease some of the people that they boss, right? And sometimes, especially a new boss, may do things that displeases a lot of the people. And sometimes the reason that the people are displeased is because the boss makes them do stuff they don't want to do.
Like work?
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
better Hong Kong believe it, sir.
Yeah. Where's Jimmy now that we need him? Jimmy writing this up by saying, you know how many GovGuam employees it takes to change a light bulb? Jimmy says that, you know how many GovGuam employees it takes to change a light bulb? Well, I can't tell you. It's a personnel matter. Sorry to bother you. Bye. Yeah. So, you know, the fact that, and then there's something else that kind of weighs here, you know. I know a military saying, soldiers in the barracks bitch. So, I mean, that's their job description, right? So the fact that employees are displeased all by itself cannot be dispositive, but it cannot be ignored either. So tomorrow we're going to pick up on this. I'll probably make this first item on the calendar because there's a lot to talk about here with respect to this part of the story, with respect to what little Lulu is going to do about it, how she's going to react, whatever happened to Patrick Lujan. And then there's a legal aspect. Yesterday I said, the way I interpret the law, 3 people can't vote to reinstate Linda Uggan. She's not reinstated. So this will be one of those things that sticks around for a few days. You won't want to miss it, for sure. See you tomorrow.